Spend a little time in a casino, and you get the feeling the house doesn't much care what you play. Red or black, banker or player. Pass line, hardways, take your pick. Feels like it's all up to you. Thing is, that ain't quite true. All the games are already built to favor the house, but if you look close enough, something starts to stand out. Some bets are placed right in the spotlight, while others sit quietly at the edge. No one leans over your shoulder and says, "That's the wrong bet." Just options, rows of them, and each feels like it belongs. That's the first thing that gets you. The freedom of it. Feels almost polite the way it's laid out. Like nobody in the building would ever dream of taking your money on purpose. Whole place runs on good manners and bad intentions. See, a casino is a lot like a well-run Sunday dinner. You walk up to a blackjack table and it looks simple enough. Hit, stand, double down, maybe split if you're feeling brave. Over at roulette, it's even easier. Red or black, odd or even. Pick a number if you've got a lucky one. And for a while, it all seems fair. Like the house set the stage and left you to it. But somewhere between your first small win and your first quiet loss, a different thought starts to settle in. Not all choices feel the same. Some bets just seem to call your name a little louder than others. The kind with names like Perfect Pairs or 21 plus 3. The ones sitting just off to the side of the main game, promising something bigger. You don't go looking for them, not at first. Some of them are dressed up to catch your eye. Some of them are built to sparkle a little. I remember a table in Reno years back, old place. Carpet looked like it had seen more stories than it could carry. Dealer had that steady rhythm, shuffle, deal, tap, like a metronome you didn't realize you were following. There was a man next to me, mid-50s maybe, the kind of guy who looked like he'd been coming there longer than he cared to admit. Had that look about him, like he trusted the table more than most things. One of those quiet legends of the felt, or at least he thought so. He played blackjack the way most folks do at first, careful, measured, just sticking to the main hand like he was supposed to. And for a while he held his own. But then, after a few hands, the dealer spread out those extra circles on the table, bright little spaces sitting just above the main betting box. "Side bets are open," she said, same way you might mention the weather. Now those bets, they've got names that sound like they belong in a Vegas headline. Perfect Pairs, 21 plus 3, Lucky Ladies, all sounding more like racehorses than wagers. They promise something bigger. One good hit, and it feels like you did something right, which is a dangerous feeling in a casino. The man next to me hesitated at first, then he dropped a chip on Perfect Pairs, just one. Didn't hit. Tried again next hand, still nothing. Third hand, nothing again. But he stayed with it, because every time those cards came out, there was that tiny moment, just before they landed, where it felt like it might finally happen. And when it didn't feel all that bad. You could almost convince yourself it was close enough, and that's usually enough. Here's the thing about those side bets. The main game of blackjack, played carefully, can have a house edge sitting somewhere around 0.5%, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, assuming, of course, you're listening to the math and not Earl who's holding his 7th beer. But those bright, tempting side bets, 6%, 10%, 20% depending on the table. They sit there like ornaments, doing more work for the house than the game itself. And once you start noticing them, you begin to see the same pattern everywhere. Doesn't matter what table you're standing at. Sometimes the trap sits there pretty and quiet. Other times, it gets hollered across the felt, especially in the middle of the craps table where things get loud. If you've never stood at a craps table, it's total chaos. Doesn't take long before you stop trying to understand it and figure it must make sense to somebody. Chips flying, people shouting, hands in the air like something just caught fire. Whole thing looks like a family argument with better lighting. Only difference is, the house usually wins those arguments. And right in the middle of all that, there's a cluster of bets that demand your attention. The center of the table, where the proposition bets live, feels almost like a different game entirely. Any 7, hard 8, horn bet. One roll of the dice decides all of it. Dealers call them out with a kind of practiced enthusiasm. Not pushy, just loud enough to make sure you hear it. It's hard not to get pulled in, but it's also the fastest way on earth to feel brilliant for 6 seconds. You see someone toss a chip onto any 7, and for a moment it feels like an expressway to something exciting. One roll, one outcome, big payout if it lands. But those bets, they carry edges that climb well past 15%. They burn bright and they burn fast. Still, they're the ones people remember. The cheers, the quick wins, the stories that get told later over drinks. Nobody goes home eager to tell the wife about a disciplined little pass line session. That doesn't make for much of a story. Now, other wagers won't shout at you directly. They speak a little more softly. Roulette has a way of dressing things up. Not just red or black, but groups of numbers, sections of the wheel, bets that feel a little more deliberate. And if you stay long enough, you'll hear names that sound almost refined. Voisin du zéro, tiers du cylindre, orphelin. They roll off the tongue as if they belong in a quiet French cafe instead of a casino floor. You can lose money in plain English, but some folks prefer to do it with a French accent. And when you place them, it feels deliberate, like you've stepped into something more sophisticated than just picking a number. But under the surface, they're simply bundles of smaller bets. You're just spreading chips across sections of the wheel, increasing the number of ways you can win while keeping the same mathematical weight underneath. The wheel doesn't care what you call it. It spins the same way every time, but the language, the presentation, it changes how it feels. And feeling counts for more than most people realize. Then there are bets that don't feel tempting so much as sensible. Wagers that feel like they're helping you. Blackjack has one of those built right into it. Dealer shows an ace. Everything slows down just a little. And then comes the question. Insurance? Always sounds like a favor. In my experience, anything offered that sweet usually has teeth, yet it's asked every time. Same tone, same timing, like clockwork. Now on the surface, it sounds reasonable, protective even, a way to guard against the dealer flipping over a 10-value card and taking the whole table down in one motion. And every now and then, that's exactly what happens. Dealer turns the card. Blackjack. Table groans. The insurance bet pays out. Feels like you made the right call. Feels like you saw it coming. But over time, that bet quietly leans in the house's favor. Not dramatically, not aggressively, just enough. And because it's offered so often, every time that ace shows, it stays fresh in your mind, a question that never really leaves the table. The whole thing, when you step back, hinges on something simple, and you slowly start to notice how it's all laid out. The game offers choices. The table highlights certain ones. The environment gives them weight, and somewhere in between, a person reaches for the option that feels the most alive. Sportsbooks also found a newer way to dress it. A single bet on a game, say a team to win, carries its own margin. Nothing too dramatic. But start combining outcomes, stacking them together into parlays, and something shifts. Now you're picking winners as you build a story, the kind you start imagining before the first game even kicks off, already counting the money before anything's even happened. Bettors have spent a lot of years going broke in advance. Most parlays go like this. Team A wins, player B scores, total goes over, and there's always one more leg for good measure. That's how a tidy idea turns into a sermon. Big numbers, small stakes turning into something impressive. That's the part that gets advertised. What you don't feel as clearly is how each added piece tilts things just a little further. Not enough to scare you off, just enough to matter. Same game parlays, boosted odds, multi-leg slips that look like they belong on a highlight reel. They aren't forced on anyone, but show up exactly where people are already looking. Some bets make more money because they pay worse. Others do it by moving faster. Slot machines figured that out long before anyone else. You sit down and everything feels simple. Press a button, watch the reels, maybe hit something nice. But then you notice a small detail. The higher bets unlock more of the game. Bigger jackpots, more pay lines, bonus rounds that only trigger at certain levels. So you raise the wager just a little, then a little more. Nobody ever means for just a little to become a lifestyle, because the idea of missing out on something just slightly out of reach, starts to feel worse than the extra cost. Gamblers will spend a remarkable amount of money avoiding the feeling of maybe. And what happens next is quiet. No big moment, no sudden realization, just a faster rhythm. Spin after spin, the balance moves quicker than expected. Nothing changed in the outcome, just the pace. All of this makes me think back to that man in Reno sometimes, mostly because I've met him in a dozen places, and on one or two bad nights in the mirror. Not a man I'm proud to know, but I know him well enough. That gambler in Reno didn't lose at all, not in one night anyway. He just leaned into those side bets a little more each hour, chasing the one that would make the session feel complete. At some point, he stopped looking at the main hand altogether. Cards came out, chips went down on those bright little circles, and everything else became background noise. He wasn't being told what to do. He didn't need to be. That's because casinos have a way of learning people's habits. I can't blame them. They've had plenty of volunteers. They know that given enough options, certain ones will stand out. Given enough repetition, certain ideas will settle in. Given the right mix of sound, light, and timing, a person will begin to follow a feeling they can't quite explain. And those feelings tend to gather in the same places, around the flashy bets, the loud ones, the ones dressed up to sound clever, the ones pretending to help, and the fast ones that empty a stack before a man's had time to think twice. If you walk through a casino in the early hours, when the crowds thin out and the air feels heavier, you'll still see it playing out. A player leaning forward, eyes fixed on a side bet. Someone at a craps table waiting for a hard way to hit. A small group huddled around a slip, counting the legs of a parlay like they're holding a winning ticket already. No one guiding them, no one correcting them, just the quiet arrangement of choices, doing what it's always done. There's a kind of comfort in it, strangely enough. The idea that everything is right there on the table, nothing hidden, nothing locked away. You can place your chips wherever you like, play however you choose, and that part is true. It always has been. But if you sit long enough, really sit the way people used to, you begin to notice which parts of the table seem to glow just a little brighter than the rest. And once you see it, you can't let it go. The game carries on, same as always. Cards slide, wheels spin, dice bounce. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a handful of bets keep drawing the eye. Same ones you noticed the first time over and over again. No special reason, just because they feel like they might be the one. Most nights, those are the ones people drift toward. The house just builds the environment, and then it waits. And the felt is very, very patient. There are plenty more stories hiding under those lights, some louder than others. If you're still here, pull up a chair. The felt's still warm.